Sorry for the delay. Thanks for joining us. Welcome. Today we're going to give a webinar. We're going to show you how to secure your business on a budget by walking you through a live demo of some simple hardening policies that can easily be configured in a Microsoft 365 tenant to secure your organization without breaking the bank. We will be recording this session, but all lines have been muted. We're going to take questions throughout the event. We want to remind everyone to please open the Q&A panel. Ask your questions as you think of them. We'd like to have everyone take a minute right now and drop us a note. Let us know you found the Q&A panel and tell us, what are your challenges with a remote workforce? Share your questions, share your comments. We have Matt Mayo with me here today. He's the CEO of DiamondIT, and he's going to help answer your questions in the Q&A.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending today.
So a little about DiamondIT. We're a security-focused managed services provider. We were founded in 2005, and we have offices in Bakersfield and Los Angeles. We're really proud of our associations with organizations like Vistage and Evolve Peer Groups. Our membership in these groups, it helps us constantly improve and mature our services and offerings. In these groups, we share ideas with like-minded organizations, and we all have the common goal of being a best-in-class service provider. We're also a member of the Secure the Village Leadership Council, and we take a great deal of pride in educating the business community. It really does take a village to achieve a strong security posture, and it's important for us to serve as cyber guardians. We know that offering guidance and our services makes the business community a much safer place for us all. So without introductions out of the way here, I want to start our presentation today by discussing a little bit about the threat landscape. So today we survive in an internet-based world. Bandwidth is cheap. We have near limitless amounts of media-rich content at our fingertips. And every day there are new web and browser-based applications. There's also been a long-running shift to personal IP-enabled devices, things like smartphones and IoT devices. So in my house, you know, my kids love to holler at Alexa to tell them a fart joke or to play some music or set a timer for the oven as they're baking cookies. So I want to ask everyone to raise your hands for me in the Q&A. Who here has an Amazon Echo Dot or a Google Home in their house? Without putting my tinfoil hat on, I'd like to ask you if you've considered the risks and threats that may exist in the homes of your remote workers. Things like these IoT devices or even their kids' Xboxes that could be infected with malware. So we also have to consider things like social media applications like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Things that have become conduits to mainstream communications today. You know, all of these are mechanisms and channels that create larger attack surfaces, ones that organizations really can't secure, and certainly ones that shouldn't be ignored. So the reality is the way we work is changing. It's exposing businesses to new risks, and users are spending more time on less secure networks while we work from home. Work from home is no longer a place you go. It's a thing that you do from any location because the cloud has made it so simple to access data from outside the office. So the COVID-19 accelerated shift to remote work, it may have some advantages depending on your organization and your industry, but here's the scary side of things. We used to consider corporate networks a safe and secure place because we had four walls and the protection of a good perimeter firewall. But today, device endpoints are increasingly moving outside that corporate firewall. The second quarter's threat landscape was clearly dominated by coronavirus-related lures, and that's because of the effectiveness of these themed attacks. They were so successful. But the latest quarterly threat landscape report from Newspire, it shows that attackers are pivoting away from COVID-19, and they're now using more predominant themes like the upcoming election or Black Lives Matter movement. So phishing emails and themes, they're not a new challenge. We're hit with phishing emails every day. The difference is the effectiveness of attacks because they're using very compelling and very topical lures, things that are very polarizing. And they certainly illustrate that human security is crucial now more than ever, and it only takes one click by one employee to introduce malware into your network and to potentially shut down your organization's ability to operate. Threat researchers, they recently found the world's most costly and destructive botnet has resurfaced after more than 5 months of absence. So early versions of Emotet, it had a module that was used to commit banking fraud. And for years, it's been widely classified as a banking Trojan, but later versions now load third-party malware. Recently, Emotet has been delivered using third-party payloads, things like spamming, credential stealing, email harvesting, or even lateral spread across local networks. And here's why it's so dangerous. So Emotet is super resourceful and super versatile. Emails, they often appear to come from someone that you've previously communicated with. They use subjects and email contents from previous email threads. And all this information is collected from the inboxes of infected computers. It's much easier to trust messages that come from someone that you know or someone that you've worked with in the past. So the inclusion of legitimate content in these messages, it makes it much more difficult for both users, but also for spam filters to detect them. And the hardest part is when these malicious tools, when they steal credentials from users, these messages can then be sent as a real user from a trusted server. So attackers are always exploiting new opportunities as the way we work changes. And that's why things like security awareness training and policy hardening really are so important. So I'll ask everyone a question in the Q&A by a show of hands. Have you ever noticed that security warning when opening up an Office document? The one that says macros have been disabled and it has that button where you enable content? And I want to ask you, did it make you pay attention to the document or its source or its origin? Make sure you trust that sender and that file. So this particular image we have here, it came from Malwarebytes, and it's a current example of an email with a malicious attachment. It was taken from the reappearance of Emotet, and obviously the document has a malicious macro embedded. When you click on that button to enable that content, this example downloads and installs Emotet. And of course, Emotet can then download and install additional modules that can be used to steal credentials or harvest emails or spread across your local network. So I can't personally say it any better than Curtis Franklin did, so I'm going to read a quote from this article here. And he said that malware as a service has seen criminals take over victims' computers and maintain them as an asset, renting them out to clients for a variety of purposes. Once infected with a remote access Trojan, a computer can be a crypto miner one day, a spam spewing bot the next. And if a keylogger can grab account credentials for banking and other applications, that's just additional revenue for the criminal. So I like to relate this to like an Airbnb service for hackers. Hackers can rent infected machines, and then the next week someone else is using that same system for their nefarious purposes. So some tools and services, they've made it really easy for anyone to become a hacker. For example, a keylogger tool can be purchased on the dark web for as little as $25 and even comes with a 1-800 number for hacker tech support. So you buy this tool, if you can't figure out how to make it work, you can call the guy that wrote it and he'll tell you how to use it. He'll walk you through and give you some coaching. Researchers, they found that even low-skilled hackers can quickly compromise a network using these hacking activities that are nearly identical to normal user activities, which makes them really hard to detect. And most organizations, they don't realize how vulnerable they are to attack. Some of the easiest fixes are as simple as having a properly configured business class firewall, ensuring things like good patching for your systems, and then of course enabling good security policies. And that's it. Very simple changes can remove 3/4 of these low-skilled vulnerabilities from your systems. So that's why today I'm going to share out a browser window and I'm going to do a live demo of some basic policies and hardening configurations that can be easily deployed in a Microsoft 365 tenant. The primary purpose of this demo is to show you just some of the ways that an organization can minimize the potential for a compromise just by leveraging tools and licensing you may already have and by following some of Microsoft's security best practices. I do have a little disclaimer here. This is not meant to be an in-depth training session. It's really meant to give you an awareness of what you should be expecting from your IT department or from your managed service provider. If they aren't talking with you about these things or deploying these policies, you may be missing some simple but important protections. So I'm going to stop my slides here and I'm going to share out a browser window real quick. Bear with me 1 second. And please let us know if you can see my browser window here. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to log into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And this is the URL here. This is admin.microsoft.com. And this Admin Center is where you can manage your organization in the Microsoft Cloud. You can complete tasks such as adding and removing users, changing licensing, resetting passwords. And I want to caution everybody, any changes made in this admin portal should be made with great care, particularly in live environments, because we want to avoid disrupting services and impacting operations for your users. So I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to refresh this page real quick. And I'm going to copy and paste from a different notepad here the username and the password to log into the admin center. Looks like my session's already active here. And you'll notice when you get logged in here, a couple things to take note of. We have some options, some blades here on the left-hand side, but one of the ones we have to pay attention to is you may need to click on this Show All button here at the bottom in order to see all of the options. When I click on this, you'll see that we expand out. We get quite a few additional options you might not see initially. And of course, you can always click on it again to show less. An important thing to note here. Also, something important to note is there's oftentimes many ways to accomplish the same task. So I'm going to show this with our very first policy hardening change here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to designate more than one global administrator. So you really should designate more than one global administrator in your tenant. Microsoft recommends having between 2 and 4 global admins, and one of the primary reasons is to prevent an organization from being locked out of their Microsoft tenant in case passwords are lost. But it's also important because delegating access creates an audit trail and gives accountability for changes made in the portal. If a single admin account were shared by multiple users, it could be potentially difficult to detect malicious activity. So if we come in here to the admin center and to users and then to active users, we'll see the users that I built out in this demo environment here. And we're going to pick on this guy, Joe King here. When you click on him, it's going to open up a user details blade here. And one of the options we have in this section is for roles. And notice that Joe doesn't have any administrative access. But if we click on this link here to manage roles, the blade changes here, and we're going to give him admin center access. And we can check this box right here that gives him global admin access. And of course, we're going to click on the button here to save the changes. So remember, when you give permissions, we always want to take great care. We want to assign the least permissive role possible for the user's duties and responsibilities. This principle of least privileged use, it means we only want to give admins the access to do what their job is, to do whatever they need to in order to accomplish their roles or their tasks. So we wouldn't want to give just anybody global admin. If someone's going to be administering your online Exchange Online services, you only want to give them Exchange admin services. Or if you have a help desk person or a user admin person, you're only going to want to give someone the admin role for which their job responsibilities would require. And something else to take note is we don't recommend designating business owners and managers as global admins on their primary account. If they need access to your Microsoft tenant because they manage your organization's IT or they manage your organization's users and licenses, then we really recommend you make a secondary account to be used as a dedicated admin. So in Matt's example, instead of using Matt Mayo for a global admin rights, we would give Matt Mayo, I guess, a Matt-admin account, and that would be where we would assign global admin permissions. We want to kind of separate those two because we know business owners and managers and leaders, they're common targets for threat actors and for compromises. So this is also a great example here. If I save this global admin role change here, and I'm going to close this blade, where we can do multiple things in multiple areas here. So we were under active users, but if we come here to this roles section here, the roles blade opens up. You can see a lot of the roles that are predefined here, and one of them is going to be the global admin role. And if I click on this thing here, a different blade pops up. You can see we have 2 global admins right now. And we can click on the tab here to show assigned admins. And of course, the admin user account is a global admin. We've also now given Joe access as a global admin. So again, all throughout the Microsoft portals, there's multiple ways to accomplish the same task. There could be other ways in which you could accomplish the same things we're going to show you today. So tell us real quick in the Q&A, we're going to jump to our second topic here. Who has MFA turned on for their Microsoft accounts? And if it is turned on, is it turned on for your entire organization or for just selected admins? So multi-factor authentication, it's a process where users are prompted during sign-ons for an additional form of identification, such as entering a code on a cell phone. We know credentials are really easy to steal, and MFA can help protect against weak or compromised credentials. And there's very compelling reasons why banks and mature or secure organizations enforce both their employees, but also their customers to use MFA. Everyone should turn it on for all devices and accounts wherever possible. So if we come here to the active users, sometimes these tool buttons here could be hiding. You can click on the ellipses here to show more. We're going to click on the button here for multi-factor authentication, and that's going to load a new page for us. Give it a second to load here. And in this page, you can see all of our users, all of their usernames, and of course, their multi-factor authentication status. And you can see here that it's turned on for everybody. We've got Joe, Richard, Robert, and Sam. They all have multi-factor authentication turned on. But it's really easy to turn it on in bulk for everybody. We can highlight the option here and do a bulk update. And we can tell that we want to actually edit this here, manage user settings over here. And we can, again, require users here to provide the contact methods again, or of course we can turn on multi-factor authentication. I think these are already turned on here, so it's going to give us, we're going to disable that here. So for Joe, if we highlight Joe, we can click on the link here to enable as the first step. Notice here when you enable multi-factor authentication, it does give you the deployment guide. If you haven't already read that, that can be very helpful when you deploy this to your users. If your users don't regularly sign into a browser, you can give them this link here so they can actually manually enroll. But it's really critical to inform your users about upcoming changes. Whenever you make a change to your tenant, like turning on MFA registration, you want to communicate that effectively to your user base. The more that they understand what's going to happen before it happens, they can be prepared for these changes and make sure they're not caught off guard or surprised by these things. Certainly helps rollouts be much smoother. So actually we're going to turn it on for Joe here, enable multi-factor authentication. And notice it's enabled for everybody. This enablement here, it means that people can use it, they can enroll it, but it doesn't always enforce it. It allows people to actually turn this off as well. What we want to do sometimes is we want to highlight everybody here, and we want to come here to the option to enforce, manage user settings. We should be able to enforce multi-factor authentication for all users. This means that they're going to have to use it. They are not permitted in order to I guess, turn off or disable multi-factor authentication. So another good step is first you turn on, you enable it, get people to enroll, and once people are enrolled, you can then at a later date actually enforce it in order to require and not allow someone to turn this stuff off. Going back to our admin center, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to deploy conditional access policies. So for more granular control, conditional access policies can be used to define the events or applications that require multi-factor authentication, in addition to that MFA enforcement. These policies, they can allow regular sign-on events when someone's like on a corporate network or they're using a company registered device, but they can prompt for additional verification factors when working remote or from a personal device working from home. So in order to get to conditional access policies from the Microsoft Admin Center, we have to come here to Azure Active Directory, to this new admin center here. It's going to open up a new page. We'll give that a second to load. We're going to come here to the Azure Active Directory section or blade. And the first thing we have to do is we have to disable security defaults. Underneath properties, there's these manage security defaults links right here. We have to click on this hyperlink. And so recently, Microsoft has turned on these security defaults. It looks like security defaults has already been turned off here. These defaults, they've recently been enabled by Microsoft. They require users to register for MFA when using this Azure portal. They require administrators to use multi-factor authentication, and they block legacy authentication protocols. What we want to do is we want to actually intelligently turn off the security defaults because we're going to get a little more granular with how we're going to configure these things using conditional access policies. Give us, I guess, a more fine level of control for these things. So now we've verified that security defaults is turned off. We're going to come here to security and then to conditional access. Under conditional access policies, we're going to make a new policy here real quick. And we're going to give this a name. We're going to say require MFA for all users. We've got a couple assignments, a couple things we need to set here. The first thing is users and groups. We can choose who this policy applies to. And by default for today, we're going to basically tell it applies to everyone. But we also have the option to exclude people here as well. So if you wanted to make a policy that requires multi-factor authentication for your accounting and HR departments, but not necessarily for your sales departments, you can have a high level of granular and fine control to how these policies get configured. The second section here defines which apps or actions are required. So we're going to tell it here for our purposes that we're going to protect all apps. But here you can require multi-factor authentication for Teams or for OneDrive or for Exchange Online, but not for SharePoint or not for other sites. And those are probably bad examples, but depending on the scenario, you can decide which applications you want to protect. You also have the granular control for conditions. So this is where we can talk about, I guess, a risky user, someone signing in from, an unknown location or someplace they've never signed in before. We can look at device platforms. We can restrict stuff to only Windows computers or only Mac OS devices, depending on the organization. We can also look at locations, whether you're in the office or at a corporate office based on IP address, or even a device state. This would say whether your device is enrolled and compliant with all of your company policies. If your device is configured properly, we can say that configured devices don't require this, but non-configured devices or non-compliant devices would require additional controls. And we get down here to the bottom. This is really where we turn on the MFA, where we set these controls. We can just choose to block access if someone was non-compliant, but we're going to grant access. And this is the box we're looking for right here. Require multi-factor authentication. We'll select this and save it here. And at the very bottom here, we have the option to enable this policy. By default, these policies, they show as a report only, meaning you can check the audit trail and the audit logs when you first turn these things on to get an idea of whether your policy is working as you intended and would take the appropriate action. And once you've tested this policy and verified how it would behave, you can then decide to turn it on or to turn it off in the future. So the first step for conditional access policies is always to enable reporting only. For our purposes, we'll leave it here. And down here at the bottom, you might get a warning. This is where it will tell you have to turn off security defaults by default before you can actually configure these things. But it also warns you, be really careful you don't lock out your administrative account. Again, another reason why you would want to have more than one global admin account. So we can create this policy. I understand. We'll create this policy. And here's our conditional access policy. And of course, it shows us the current state of these policies. Again, a lot of granular control, a lot of fine detail we have when we set these conditional access policies up. The next thing I want to show is how to set up external sender tagging. And for this one, we're going to go back to our Exchange Admin Center, our Microsoft 365 Admin Center here. And then we're going to come here to the Exchange Admin Center. And once we're here, when this thing loads, we have to come down here in the Exchange Admin Center to the mail flow section and into the rules. So phishing emails, they're getting more sophisticated and more compelling. You know, Emotet's a great example of this. Sender email addresses, I mean, they can be cleverly faked or even spoofed. And so Microsoft 365, it allows us to create these custom rules to perform a variety of tasks. And what we want to do is we want to create a rule that marks external emails as coming from the outside of the organization. This can alert users to use extra caution when something comes in from a third party. So I've already staged these rules here. This is one here for the external sender warning banner. And I'm going to open this thing up. And I think I need to stop my share and share a different window here so you guys can see this. So let me know if you guys can't see this rule window. But we give this rule a name, and then we set the conditions. We say if this sender is located outside the organization and the recipient is inside the organization, this means that this email is obviously coming from the outside in. We want to do the following. We want to take an action by pre-pending a disclaimer. And this over here is the HTML code, the code that actually applies the disclaimer here. And we have a fallback action. That fallback action is set to wrap. Means that the disclaimer can't be inserted into, I guess, the message. If it can't be pre-pended, we want to do is we want to wrap this email in a package and send it with the disclaimer, you know, so someone, you know, we still get this disclaimer, this message displayed for the user. So I'm going to go ahead and save this change real quick. I'm going to go back to my other window. I'm going to stop sharing and go back to my other window, and I'm going to demo this for you guys. I'm going to show you what this really looks like. Hopefully you can see my window again. Please let us know if you can't see the rules here. And I'm going to switch from this Exchange Admin Center. I have a tab open already where we have our email open. So we're using Microsoft Outlook Web Access. This is outlook.com/office/OWA. Lots of ways to get here. You got to love live demos, right? And when we load this this mailbox here, I've got a test message that I sent in, and this is what that HTML code does. What it does is it inserts this disclaimer here in an email. So I've got something mocked up here that if this was a suspicious phishing email offering a free gift or having a link, and it came from an anonymous threat actor that was spoofed, what this does is this tags this message that says, hey, use caution when clicking on links or attachments. This came from the outside. And something else that I like to do is I like to intelligently and misspell this thing. So I have 2 periods here. This is something that a threat actor or someone that compromised my account, if they're trying to duplicate, what I've got here, they might miss this second period that I have set up in my disclaimer. This is something that I can use internally to recognize this is a genuine, stamp or a genuine message tagging external senders here. So something interesting here. Again, another good tool to help users be aware of external sender messages and look for things like phishing attacks or spoof content. So the other mail flow rule that we're going to set up is we're going to enable a rule to block external forwarding. So Microsoft Transport rules, they can help data from being exfiltrated from your network. A very common thing, if someone did compromise a user's mailbox, a very common thing is for them, these threat actors, to write, a rule to intercept email and forward them outside to someone else. This is an increasingly common data leakage method in more and more organizations. And we see these rules. I'm going to demo this for you real quick. I think I already have this rule set up here. If we come here to settings, Outlook settings and rules, this is what a threat actor would do. And it says forward emails to threat actors. We don't want this, right? That they would come in here and they would say, for all messages, I want to forward it, outbound to my threat actor's Gmail address. So if you ever get a message here, basically a copy of that message would be sent out to the threat actor where they can learn about your organization, they can learn about your behavior, understand your correspondence, even know when you're out of the office. It's more common for threat actors to attack people when they're out of the office because they're less likely to be on their toes, and they're more apt to quickly read something and forward it on. So to create this rule to block these rules from happening, we're going to come to the Exchange Admin Center, the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, and then to the Exchange Admin Center here. We already have that open. We're not going to wait for that thing to load again. And then to mail flow rules. And here's my second rule. This one says block email forwarding to external senders. And when I open this thing up, I'm going to change my shared window again so you guys can see this. Let me know if you guys can't see this detailed Outlook rule, but this says we're going to block emails that are being forwarded to external addresses. And we'll look at these conditions. So if the sender is located inside and the recipient is located outside, we have this extra condition here that says, and the message type is an auto forward message type. Then we want to reject this message with an explanation. We're going to explain that this message was blocked because email forwarding to external addresses is not allowed. This is a common sign of compromised mailboxes. So we got a little grammatical mistake there, but we're going to save that for our purposes. I'm going to share my other window here, come back to our rules, and I'm going to show you what that'll look like. So back to our Outlook mailbox. If this rule was set up and turned on for this mailbox and someone sent the message, you might get back this message here that says, hey, a custom mail flow rule created by the admin blocked your message. It was blocked because email forwarding is not allowed, right? It's a common sign of a compromised mailbox. And this is really a trigger to the user that, hey, something's not right. Hopefully they're going to call the help desk and we would want to find out where that rule is. And sure enough, in Outlook settings, we come into rules and we figured out, man, this mailbox has been compromised. We want to delete this rule because we don't want emails to be forwarded to the outbound threat actors. And of course, we want to change this password and maybe run an investigation to find out how this mailbox was compromised. The next thing I want to show you guys, talking about those compromises and how to scope those compromises, is how to enable audit log search. So you should enable auditing and data recording in your Office 365 tenant. This ensures you have a record of every user and administrative interaction with your services, including Azure Active Directory, your Exchange Online, SharePoint, OneDrive, that kind of stuff. So user and admin activity from your organization is recorded in this audit log and it's retained for 90 days or up to 1 year, depending on the license that you have assigned to your users. So some organizations, we're going to come here real quick. So in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, we're going to come here to security, and Microsoft loves to constantly make changes to these portals. So it's interesting here. There is a security portal, a compliance portal, and a security and compliance portal. So sometimes it's easy to get lost, and these things are constantly in flux as Microsoft is developing and adding new features. But we're going to come here to the security and compliance portal. We're going to scroll down here to the reports section, the search section here. We're going to expand this one. We have this audit log search. You come to audit log search. This is really simple. You have to click the button right here. It says turn on auditing. And once I turn on auditing here, it can take some time for this thing to finally display results. But now what we can do is we can go through and look at the audit logs and see what's happened. So some organizations, they might not want to have this auditing retained for 90 days or for 30 days. The global admin can obviously turn off auditing in 365, but it's really important to have this data to investigate and to scope a security breach should one ever occur. So this thing has to be turned on first. And of course, you can also set up retention policies. So down here at the bottom, you can set up new policies, but also your audit retention policies and determine how long you want these things to save. Real quick, if I show you kind of demo a search, we can search for all kinds of things. We can search for file access, deleted files, copied files, folder access, sharing permissions, site activities. All of these things are available here in these audit logs. These audit logs are very comprehensive. So when you're looking for something and you're scoping a breach, you can see how detailed it is, that we really can determine who did what. It's really important to have this stuff in case you guys ever get a breach. So simple as turning that on and setting a retention policy in case you guys need to make any adjustments there. The next thing I want to show is how to enable mailbox auditing for all users. So for this one, we're going to shift over to PowerShell for a second. I'm going to stop my sharing of my browser window, and I'm going to share out a PowerShell window real quick here. Where's my PowerShell window? Here's my PowerShell window. Please let us know, raise your hands if you guys can't see this PowerShell window. So by default, all non-owner access is audited for mailboxes, but you have to enable auditing on mailboxes for owners. So if you're accessing your own mailbox, that is not audited by default. So this PowerShell policy, it allows us to discover, I guess, illicit access to exchange online if someone's account's been breached. Again, let us know if you can see this PowerShell window. These commands are pretty simple. This first one here, it actually stores the admin credentials. So this is actually how we're going to get logged in. I'm going to send this command here first. Oh, forgot this. The first character here. So we'll send this command here first. And what this is going to do is it's going to prompt us. Hopefully you guys can see that logon prompt, and I'm going to copy and paste my credentials from a different notepad here. And this is kind of how we get logged in. The second step here is we have to create a session with Exchange Online. So this is where we create a PowerShell session. We're going to send this command here. Take a second for it to process for that a session to be established. And once the session is established, we have to click on this command here to actually import that session to this PowerShell window. So kind of a quick three-step process. This is where it's going to load all the commands, all the modules, all the options that we have in order to use this PowerShell session to perform these reports or these commands here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to enable mailbox auditing for all users. So this is a simple search. It says get all mailboxes, run a search. We don't care, unlimited result sizes. It doesn't matter how big this list is. We want to get everything. If they have a user mailbox, give us a list. And once you have that list, we're going to set the mailbox to enable auditing, and this flag is going to be set to true. So I'm going to send this command here real quick. Make sure we didn't like our credentials here. Make sure I copy and pasted this and didn't miss anything. And it's going to run this command against all of our mailboxes here. Give this just a quick second to process. And so once this command finishes, we can then run this next command. This next command here, it'll actually run that same search that says get mailboxes. And it's going to then show us here that auditing is enabled. We only have a couple mailboxes. This shouldn't take so long to run. So this next command here, run the report against all of our mailboxes. And you can see here all the user principal names, all their logons, that auditing is enabled for everything except for that discovery mailbox. And it's audited for both the delegate, but also for the admin. So this is good to see that we have auditing enabled for mailboxes for both the owner, but also for any non-owner access. And something else we're going to do is really important that when we're done with these PowerShell sessions, we send a command to close these sessions. Microsoft only allows a couple of sessions to exchange online at a time. These sessions do not expire, they don't close themselves. So if you don't disconnect properly, you can actually consume all of those sessions and then have to contact Microsoft support in order to properly have those things closed so you can make a new connection in the future. And of course, that delay, if you don't have any sessions available, can really inhibit support or service in case you need emergency access to this PowerShell command in the future. So really important that you use a command here to remove your PowerShell sessions when you're done. All right, we're going to move on to the next thing here. We're going to set up some outbound spam notifications. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share here of my PowerShell, and we're going to reshare out our browser window again. Go back to Chrome. And this is really important too. You should set outbound exchange online spam notifications because we want to get a copy. We want to be notified when someone inside your organization has been blocked for sending excessive emails or for sending spam. So for this one, we're going to come back here to our Microsoft 365 Admin Center. We're going to come here to the Exchange Admin Center. And I think we already have that one open. We'll wait for it to load again. We're going to come here to Protection and to anti-spam. I'll give this a second here. There's actually multiple ways to get to this thing here too. While this loads, I'll also show you here, same thing under Microsoft 365 Admin Center. If we come here to Security and Compliance as well, we have the options here as well under Threat Management and under Policies. There should be the anti-spam options here. And under anti-spam options, you'll see here by default, all of these policies are already turned on for spam filter and connection policy, but we have one here specifically for outbound spam filter policy. And if we come here to edit this one, we'll edit it here in the Security Compliance Center. If we edit this policy, what we can do is we can come here to Notifications. We can make sure that any outbound suspicious emails, we actually can send a copy of this thing to the admin or to your compliance officer, to your IT department. And then we can also notify someone. So if you did have a compliance officer or an incident response plan, we can actually notify someone in the event that an outbound message has been sent. So if we type in admin here, let's type in here. We'll put my address in here. So we'll add that. We'll add a person here. And in the event that one of your internal people, we'll save this rule here, that one of your internal users is compromised or has been sending out outbound messages, spam messages, and if anything is blocked, we'll get notifications. And again, this is a good indication that account has been breached or someone is abusing your email system here. We'll save this. We'll close this blade here and we'll refresh this policy. And we'll see here that this policy's changed. Now indicating that we're going to send copies of suspicious messages to the people in which we've specified. So the next thing I want to show you guys is how to block calendar detail sharing. So we're going to go to the Office 365 Admin Center here, and we're going to come here to Settings and then to Org Settings. And then in Org Settings here, we have the option for Calendar where we can adjust the calendar sharing options. So you shouldn't allow your users to share calendar details with external users. This feature allows users to share full details of your calendar with external senders, and attackers, they're very commonly spending a lot more time learning about your organization and performing some reconnaissance before they launch an attack. So publicly available calendars can help attackers understand organizational relationships, determine specific users when they might be more vulnerable to attacks, like when they're on vacation or traveling. And you can see here that by default, letting your organization share, calendars with outside, sender outside people, this is okay. And allowing anyone to share, your calendars, this by email invitation, this is okay too. But this bottom setting is the one that we want to change. So we don't want to share all appointment information. We really only want to share our free busy information. If you're going to share your calendar, you really want someone outside to know when you're available and when you're not available, not necessarily where you're at where you're going, how long you're going to be there, what your flight numbers are. All that extra personal information could certainly make you more vulnerable to an attack. Really a good idea to change the setting here to block all that private and personal information sharing with external people. And so I'll go ahead and save this calendar setting change here. So something else is really important, even as a compliance thing, is to turn on DLP policies to enforce encryption. So data loss prevention, or DLP, it's a compliance feature designed to help your organization prevent unintentional or accidental exposure of sensitive information, particularly to unwanted people. So DLP examines the contents of email messages and files, and it looks for sensitive information like credit card numbers or personally identifiable information. And it uses pattern matching, expression matching in combination with other indicators like the proximity of keywords. Some customers, they dismiss DLP because they don't think they consider themselves to deal with enough of this data that needs protecting. But any business that handles sensitive information on a regular basis, even if they don't realize it, you can be handling this information, and you might have business agreements with your clients or vendors that might require you to have DLP. So we're going to set up DLP here in the Admin Center, Microsoft 365 Admin Center. We'll come here to Security. We're going to come here to this Data Loss Prevention section, and then here to Policy. And I've already got a policy configured here by default. We call this one the US DLP policy. This could take a second to load here. I mean, these policies, they can be configured for lots of things and lots of different sensitive information types. I think there's more than 100 different sensitive information types that can be detected here. So we're going to edit this policy here. And of course, just like with everything else like conditional access, you can turn these policies on right away, or you can actually test these things out first, and it'll show policy tips in a test mode, so you're not inhibiting and impacting your users as you're rolling these things out. Something to note here is there are different policies for different types of services, for Exchange or for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. Because this policy I'm going to demo for you, what it does is it just encrypts outbound email. Whenever sensitive information is found. This one's only applied to Exchange, but this is where you would have multiple DLP policies for multiple, different types of either platforms or applications, or for different conditions. And when I come here to drill into the policy settings, I've got two different policy types here, two different detections. One's for a low volume and one's for a high volume. So we can take different actions. You notice here, these are the conditions. So we have accounting information. We have credit card information, I think is one here, banking information, passport numbers, social security numbers. If any of these things are detected as sensitive information, detected in an email, what it's going to do is it's going to encrypt this message, and it's going to notify the user that sent it, hey, you kind of shake your finger, you want to warn these people, hey, be careful when you send out this sensitive information, this is kind of important. And the difference between this low volume and high volume, if I modify this policy, I'll show you. We're going to edit this rule. This says if it detects between 1 and 9 instances of a routing number, or between 1 and 9 instances of a credit card number, with between a 75 and 100% accuracy. This is that confidence scoring to make sure Microsoft, really validated, really found that information. It'll take different actions. And the action we have here is to encrypt that message, right? As simple as just setting this thing. So when you send out an email that has a detected social security number or a credit card number, the message will automatically be encrypted to protect the data. But also we're going to notify the user, and we're going to help inform them that, hey, this information is sensitive, so we don't want to send it. So for 1 to 9 records, we can have this low detection policy. But we're going to show you this one here. This shows you a high detection, high volume of content. If I modify this policy here, notice this thing is set up with some of the same sensitive information types. It says when content shared with people outside my organization. And this one does the same thing. It encrypts that outbound email message. But what it does is, in addition to we can have it set up to notify your user, we can also have it email an incident report to notify someone, your compliance officer, when these messages are blocked from from being sent outbound. Something really important. But we can also block the message. So if we want to stop this message from being sent out, we can block it. We can encrypt it. We can do lots of different things. Depending on what your company's policies and requirements would be in order to protect information from being leaked out of your organization. This is again is an important compliance feature. Even though you might not handle sensitive information or feel like you do, you guys can do it, not even realize it. But you guys might also have business agreements with your clients or vendors that may require you to use DLP, even if you don't think it's something important. So the last two policies that we're going to show you, we're almost done here, is safe links and safe attachments. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here to the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, and we're going to come here to, again, to security and compliance. And we're going to come here to threat management and to policy. And of course, we have here safe attachments and safe links. And we'll do safe links first here. So safe links can help protect your organization by providing real-time time-of-click verification for web addresses and any URLs inside your emails, inside your Office documents. So we've got a policy here set by default. If I modify this policy here, I'm going to edit this thing. What it says is in real time, URLs are going to be rewritten, meaning Microsoft's going to change that bad email or that bad link and give a Microsoft link that's coded to it. And when someone clicks on it is when they're actually going to do that real-time scanning of that link. We can also set this thing to turn it on for Microsoft Teams. And this is that real-time URL scanning for suspicious links. So when something is clicked, that link is scanned by Microsoft before the user's actually allowed to go to that website. And of course, you can always choose which URLs to not rewrite. So if you have an internal system or you have, I guess, a website that might be more sensitive to these rewrites, you can set exclusions as well. But something else is interesting here in this policy is if we edit this policy, you can also choose who this safe links policy applies to. So we have granularity here. And by default, I've chosen to apply this to everyone inside my tenant's domain. But you can have different policies for your executives or for your sales team or for your IT department. You can really choose to have multiple policies with multiple actions and multiple behaviors assigned to different users. A lot of granularity here with safe links as well. If we come back to our policies page, again, we said Microsoft 365 Admin Center, security and compliance, threat management, policies, and then the safe attachments. Very similar settings here in our safe attachments policy. When I edit this safe attachments policy, what this does, this checks attachments to make sure that these emails, these attachments aren't malicious when they get sent. And the way we like to configure this one is for dynamic delivery. What this will do is this will deliver the message without the attachment immediately to the mailbox. That way we don't delay delivery when we have to scan these attachments and spam filters in antivirus. And once that scan's completed, it'll actually reattach that file once it's done. And of course, we can always bypass this if there's an error with the scan. Make sure that attachment still gets sent through. And again, here you can also choose where this gets applied. So if you have different policies for different departments, you can also handle attachments in different ways for different people. So what I'll do is I'm going to go back to our slides here. I'm going to stop my live share here, and let's go back to our PowerPoint for a second. And we're going to kind of recap with you for a second. So we want to remind you that you really should designate more than one global admin. Microsoft recommends having between 2 and 4 for safety purposes and for auditing. We want to remind you guys that MFA should be turned on for all of your user accounts because credentials are very easy to steal, and it can help protect against those compromised or weak credentials. For more granular controls, we do have conditional access policies to define events or applications, but also prompt for additional verifications when someone's working from home, working off-site, or from a personal device. Lots of granularity here in security with conditional access. We really recommend creating a rule to clearly mark external messages as coming from the outside the organization, help keep us safe when we look at third-party messages, especially if they're spoofed. Important to, common for threat actors to set up email rules to intercept or to forward messages somewhere else. So setting up rules to block auto forwards from an employee's mailbox to external email addresses is a good protection. You should ensure that you have a record of every single, user and admin's interaction with your services. So it's important to have audit log searching turned on. This data will give you the ability to investigate and scope a security breach should one ever occur. Again, we want to turn on mailbox auditing for all users. This allows you to discover illicit access to Exchange Online activities if a person's account has been breached. Important to turn on this mailbox auditing for all users. For outbound spam, a blocked account is a good indication that there's an account might have been breached or might be compromised. So important that we get notifications when we have outbound spam notices. Having publicly available calendars can help attackers understand your organization's relationships and when a user might be more vulnerable to attack. So we can block calendar detail sharing with external people. And of course, DLP is a compliance feature designed for your organization that helps prevent that exposure of sensitive information. Any business can handle sensitive information even if you don't realize it. So make sure you don't have any business agreements with your clients or vendors that requires DLP. And then finally, ATP, the safe links and safe attachments, they help protect our organizations from time of click verifications for web addresses and URLs and emails and documents. And then of course, safe attachments can check if email attachments are malicious and take actions to protect your organization. So we've mentioned just a handful of the tools and policies that are available and that should be hardened for all organizations with the Microsoft 365 tenant. Again, we walk through how simple they can be, but this demo wasn't meant to provide a comprehensive training. So please don't feel overwhelmed. Don't jump into your tenant and apply these changes if you're not comfortable. There's a ton of hardening policies and reports that should be reviewed on a regular basis. I have a pretty big list here on this slide. These are just some of the ways that an organization can minimize the potential for a data breach or a compromise just by leveraging tools and licensing you probably already have and just following some of those best practices. So DiamondIT can help organizations with these hardening projects, things we can do to review and deploy a large number of these security and compliancy hardening policies to your tenant. We've recently helped several local government and law enforcement agencies with similar projects. So if we can be helpful, please let us know. We'd be happy to get something set up and talk to you about how we can help you here. The most important thing is everyone in an organization has to take responsibility to have a culture of security and to avoid falling for those latest cybersecurity threats. IT and service providers, we've got to get things right 100% of the time. But a threat actor, they only need one click. They only need to get it right once. A compromise takes a single click, and that's why policy hardening and strong security awareness programs, these training programs are so important. You can always expect DiamondIT to provide you a high level of service and support with a focus on security so you can focus on your business and your employees and your customers. If you need any help deploying these policies we've shown you today, just let us know. We can help you guys assess your security posture or help you deploy these policies. Reach out because we're here to help. And we know that together we can help you protect your organization from the inside out and do our part in fighting the economic and social threats, facing businesses and organizations in the world today. So with that, what we want to do is for registering or attending our webinar today, we want to offer you, access to our cybersecurity awareness training program free for 90 days. This is normally a part of our Secure-Centric program. It's a comprehensive set of security tools and services for protecting organizations, but we'll let you try out this security awareness training for free for 90 days. What we'll do is we'll conduct a complimentary phishing test of your employees to see how likely they are, to click. We're going to kind of get their current engagement with phishing scams. And this training program, it includes engaging video-based training. They can access it from anywhere on the web. It includes best practices, teach people how to avoid scams and protect sensitive data. And there's even a training quiz to test employee knowledge. It'll give you a certificate of completion, might help you with any regulatory, any compliance or insurance requirements to get your users trained. We do OSHA and safety training. We do harassment and sensitivity training. This is a great way to do cybersecurity awareness training. And then we'll also give you a complimentary dark web scan of your domain. Look for any credentials that might be for sale or stolen and available on the dark web or the black market of the internet. And the best part about this training program is it's easy to manage. It's a simple web portal. It gives you employee metrics. So please send us a quick email if you're interested in getting something set up. We'd love to get you set up with this free 90-day trial of the security awareness training product. See if we can leverage this training for your organization. So with that, what we'll do is we'll take some time to answer any of your questions from the Q&A. Stick around and let us know if you have any questions. My email and Matt's email is here on the bottom of the slide. And while we wait for any of those questions in chats, please let us know if you joined late or if you missed anything. Shoot us an email. We'd be happy to get you a copy of the recording, a copy of the slides, or even have a conversation about how we can either help you with these policies or any other needs that you guys might have that are IT related. With that, we want to thank you for attending, and we want to remind you, be sure to look out for our invites on our next event. And please stay safe out there. We're happy to help, and we appreciate you guys joining us today. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Take care.